Hey, what's up, people? Mike's back for another Homebrew Wednesday. I am extremely tired tonight, so we're going to keep this short and sweet. I honestly, aside from maybe 20 minutes ago, I had no idea what to talk about tonight. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about yeast and what I love to do in my fermentations and in my brewing, and something that I find has, I guess we'll call it, maybe fast forwarded my experience, my learning curve. It's cut it a little bit, and that's using multiple yeasts on one batch of beer. I've used it countless times. I've gone as far as to split a 5-gallon batch into 5 1-gallon batches, which is, I think, as far as a home brewer goes, the smallest scale you'll do is a 1-gallon. I don't know anyone who's done half-gallon batches. I mean, even then, knowing how much yeast to pitch, very easy to overpitch yeast, which you don't want to do either. So what I love to do is brew a 10-gallon batch and pitch one yeast into a 5-gallon finished product, and a completely different yeast into the other 5-gallon finished product, essentially giving me 2 beers that, to even an avid beer drinker, may not know that they came from the same batch whatsoever. The differences are that extreme. I usually choose one that is maybe a less extreme yeast, whether it's an American ale yeast, an English ale yeast, something simple. It can be US05, SO4, Nottingham. It can be like liquid yeast, American ale yeast, 1, 2, whatever you want to call it, strong ale yeast, even, although that one's getting a little bit into other characters. And then, I usually use a Belgian or something a little bit more extreme. Like I said, I love Belgian, so I happen to use those yeasts a lot. And yeah, I personally buy the large majority, I'd say 90% of my yeast from Ontario beer kegs. Being in Canada and in Quebec, for that matter, Ontario beer kegs is, besides the shipping, which can be a little ridiculous depending on what you order. I've ordered a 10-gallon kettle from there and shipping was 50 plus. So, it has its pluses and minuses. But if you're just ordering yeast, I don't know what you guys pay for yeast where you live, but if I go to a local homebrew shop around here, I'm going to pay between $10 and $12, tax in for a vial of liquid yeast, whether it be from White Labs or the like. So if I buy it on Ontario Beer Kegs, I'm looking at maybe $5 a vial. If I want to include ice, it's going to cost me, 75 cents, something like that. Ice being to transport it to my house safely without worrying about heat. Luckily, in a Canadian winter, I forego the purchase of ice and just, let Mother Nature handle the yeast on its own. Yeast is Mother Nature, so why not let it live finely in itself? So yeah, that's where I buy the majority of my yeast. If I have a last minute thing, of course, I'm not going to order it online because it takes a couple of days to get here. I've had day after delivery from Ontario beer kegs, so props to you guys. Get shit done. If you look on the web, I'm sure you can find complaints about them as well, but in my book, they're a good company. I find that they're becoming a little slower than they have been in the past. I used to get orders a lot faster. I don't know if it's a processing issue or it's an issue that when it leaves the facility it has trouble, whether it be UPS, Purelator, Canada Post. I don't know. I'm just a customer, and all I know is what I see, and what I like to see is yeast. So as long as it gets to me on time for what I need to do, I ain't complaining, boys. What else? What else we talk about yeast? What about washing yeast? That's a video that I actually want to make. I put pictures up on my Facebook page about washing yeast. A very simple process. Although I'm less confident than I was when I first started about that. Because I can do it once, I can do it twice, I can do it 3 times without a problem. Except for certain yeast, which I'll discuss my personal experiences in a second. But I find that after, in the fourth generation when I pitch, I don't know, there's a consistent kind of band-aidy plastic, like, just, I don't know, it's just that it's a flavor. I don't know, it's probably about my washing. I mean, I don't use, to be completely honest, I just use filtered water. I don't use boiled or like sterile water. I find filtered enough, but maybe that's the problem. It might actually be my mason jars, which I store my yeast in. Perhaps they're contaminated. Maybe I don't change the lid every single time. Maybe that's a thing. Maybe the lid, because the lid's metal, right? And I think it has like a small kind of plastic or rubber inner ring on the top. So maybe it's that ring. I don't know. Have you guys had any experience with that? Let me know. How many generations you've washed your yeast until, how many times you've been able to repitch it without any problems happening. I mean, I've read online that it can happen, dozens of times you can repitch yeast. I mean, that's probably not on a home brewer scale, but I don't think on the fourth generation I should be giving up. But again, I mean, after 4 times a vial of yeast, I mean, if you're talking a dry yeast, forget about it. I've stopped repitching dry yeast just because, for cost reasons, I'm not taking any chances. For liquid though, I still like to attempt to save the money, but not so much this year. This year, because like I told you, I want to start perfecting some recipes. I'm not taking any chances. I might do some like little experiments on the side where I wash the yeast and pitch them into something like cider, and we'll see if we get any off flavors there. It'll be probably a good experiment. Maybe that's some kind of video I can do. And so yeah, that's my yeast management center. I used to have a lot of yeast in the bottom of my kegerator. I'm in a space where I can store them. But like I said, since I haven't really been washing my yeast anymore, that little space is pretty empty right now. Although I have a lot of fresh yeast. I always have probably 10 different kinds of fresh yeast on hand. I just like to have variety. Too many times have I been in a pinch where I wanted a certain type of yeast and then I just couldn't get it, so it's just not worth it. So yeah, Ontario beer kegs. I mean, in Montreal we have. I'm a big fan of Shop à Barack. I go there quite often. I really like the owner. He's a nice guy, down to earth. I don't know. The place was really like a built up from what looks like scratch place. Small business owner, got to support it. A little bit more pricey than some other places that you can buy in Montreal, like International Mou or Mou International. And there's other places like in the West Island we have Cachette's Bootlegger. But yeah, those are the go-to. I'll go to one of those if I can't buy my stuff online. But again, preference to the online and same week usually delivery. Simple, cheap, and I don't gotta get my hands dirty. I save that for the brewing days. So yeah, I don't really have much more to say. Like I said, guys, it's been a long day for me, so I wanted to get a video out there. Whatever I've said, if anything sparked an interest, we could talk about it in the subsequent thing. Again, go check out my Facebook page. I'm constantly posting pictures and little comments about my experiments with yeast. Pitching different kinds into different batches. www.facebook.com/beeraddictedbrewery. And yeah, I'll put the link again in the comment section below. And thanks for watching, guys. This is Mike, and it's been another Home Brewing Wednesday. A short clip. I'll be back at you next week with something special. Alright, guys. Peace.
Woke up in London yesterday, found myself in the city near Piccadilly. Don't really know how I got here. I got some pictures on my phone.